Hey guys, what is up? Coming at you with another golf ball review today. Today, again, before we jump into our Wilson line, we're coming up with a couple, ones that either have been requested or, kind of wild cards thrown in there. This one has been requested a lot from one of my followers. You know who you are, and this is the Titleist AVX. So this is, of course, Titleist has the Pro V1 a few years ago. They came out with the AVX to kind of compete with it. It was supposed to launch a little lower. They promised a couple things. Titleist's marketing is really weird with how they do the Pro V1 versus the Pro V1X and switching them and stuff. But essentially, I'll read to you what this one promises. So basically what Titleist claims is that the AVX flies lower, spins less, and feels softer. And the only thing that concerns me is that bottom one, which feels softer. I don't know about that, just because if a ball flies lower and it spins less most of the time, in order for them to achieve that, it has to be a little bit harder of a golf ball. It has to be a lot firmer. So we'll definitely see how that feels. Let's go ahead and get into the design of the golf ball. Titleist has a very nice logo. I like it. It's in cursive. Reminds me of the Vice a little bit, or maybe the Vice reminds me of Titleist a little bit. But I love, their logo. It's a timeless classic. They got the 2 on there. I do wish they kind of mixed it up a little bit on the AVX, instead of making it look like the Pro V1. But I get it. When you got a tried and true formula, don't mess with it. So when it comes to the AVX, I definitely like the newer design they've gone with when it comes to their alignment tool. It's still not perfect by any means, but it's a heck of a lot better than their old design. Their old design had those really long, skinny, like really obtuse in the front and skinny at the top, but long. Hated that. One of the worst. I think they graded out on the middle of it. It was awful. I hated it. Hate looking down at it. It's why I usually don't use a Titleist ball at all for any reason, just because I hate that. But this new design with the arrows is a little bit easier to read. It's a little bit more portioned correctly, and I do like it. I think it's a good thing to do for the future. I think it's a little more modern. So I definitely like that. Other than that, it's a normal golf ball. Let's get out to the chipping and putting green, and let's see how we did there. All right, out here on the chipping and putting green with the Titleist AVX. So I did expect this ball to have a pretty firm click to it, especially since the main clubs did. However, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. It still does have a click, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it would be, especially with some of those really firm golf balls. And then honestly, getting into as far as how much it checks up, it's about a medium checkup. It definitely does check up, but nothing like those Bridgestone balls did. This ball, of course, is supposed to be for less spin, so I can attribute to that, but the cover definitely grips it. You can tell there from the video about what it's doing. Overall, a pretty decent experience, about what I would expect from a Titleist ball. Definitely a little less than the Pro V1 as well, so from what Titleist is advertising, I would say they've done a pretty good job with it. And then going into the putter feel, completely different. I expected it to have a click on the putter as well, but it is dead soft. Hitting it off of it honestly feels like butter. It has a really phenomenal feel. I'm not sure, I've never had a ball do that before to my knowledge, where it was pretty clicky off of the wedge, but then on the putter it was just buttery smooth. So I don't know how they did that, but it has a phenomenal feel off the putter. If you hit it off the toe, it definitely lets you know. It definitely sends a little shock through your hands, just a baby shock. But anything off the middle of the face feels just like cutting butter. It's awesome. So overall, really good experience around the green. So that's about how we expected, I suppose. So getting into the numbers now, I will say that this golf ball did feel firm. I don't think it really felt too much softer than the Pro V1, which means that I can already guess what the 9-iron is going to be. I'm going to guess that it's probably going to be low, because most of the time when you have a firm golf ball, the higher lofted clubs just do not seem to compress it as well, especially for an average swinger like myself. So looking at the first number, we have 89.3, which... yeah, no surprise there. One of the lowest I've tested. Golf ball was just too firm, and if you mishit it, it definitely punished me for it. 123.9 on your total distance. One of the lowest I've tested. 116.6 on the carry. One of the lowest, one of the lowest I've tested. And then 20.4, that's kind of interesting. It actually launched very high. There's only a couple I've gotten over 20, and this is one of them. So the whole it launches lower promise isn't off to a good start. That definitely is a high launching 9-iron. Getting into the 7-iron, let's see if that's any better. So we have 6,800 on the spin, which is actually a very high spin number for a 7-iron, which again, they said it spins lower. That's definitely more spin than I get with a Pro V1 or Pro V1X. 103.7 on the ball mile per hour speed, which is very, 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 very bad. very bad. One of the worst I've tested, the worst as the moment that I've tested. And basically, again, it came down to forgiveness. There were times I was able to flush it, but unfortunately, I just didn't see the risk reward that I see with some other golf balls. And let me give you the example. For some golf balls, you know, if my average is 107, I might flush it and get 110, 111 out of it, and I might mishit it and get 103, and it averages out to a 107. This one, if I flushed it, it was 107, and if I even mishit it a little bit, it was 103, 102, 100. So I was losing a significant amount of ball speed and distance from that. 156 on your total distance, which is pretty much the lowest I've tested. Yeah, at the moment that's the lowest I've tested. 143.4 on the carry, just awful. 18.8, and then that is for the 7-iron, I would call that probably a lower ball flight, a low mid. It's almost a mid, but it's just slightly in that low range. And then getting into the 5 hybrid, we are looking at 5,007 on the spin. That is very, very, very high. I've only broke 5,000 a couple times. So again, the idea that the ball spins less just isn't coming up for me. I'm getting a ton of spin off this thing, which wouldn't be a problem if I wasn't losing so much ball mile per hour speed, but I am. So 114.4 on the ball mile per hour speed, very low, one of the lowest I've tested. 186.2 on your total distance, again at the bottom of the barrel, 171.1 bottom of the barrel, and then a 16.8 launch, which is just crazy high. The third highest I've ever tested with my 5 hybrid. So I'm going to go ahead and take the whole it launches lower thing, crumple it up, and toss it aside, because that was not the case here. By any means. That just isn't true. And again, the lower spin, I'm not a fan of that. Going into the big stick, the only thing that might be a saving grace is 27.42 on the spin, which is good. That's a low amount of spin, so off the driver, pretty good there. 244.1 on the total distance, which is a pretty decent number. I would say mid to high. That's actually impressive. And then 134.5 on the ball mile per hour speed, which actually, again, is an average number, not bad at all. 223.4 on your carry, which, again, very, very good. I would actually say that's a great number. That's really good. And then 14 launch, which was that's the first time I've actually seen it have a lower launch on something, is the driver. That's the first out of all of them. So the driver did have lower spin. The driver also had the lower launch, which basically, here's what we've got. Basically, that doesn't surprise me, but here's what we've got. So this golf ball is meant for fast swingers, period. It's meant for guys swinging the club 110 plus miles per hour. And the way that was indicated is all these numbers were just terrible until I got to the driver. When I got to the driver, I finally had enough swing speed to even kind of compress it. And that's where I actually got some decent numbers. But every other club, you know, I'm swinging just a normal, you know, I swing the driver 92 mile an hour. It's a very moderate swing speed. So with that being said, I just wasn't able to compress this golf ball like I should and like Titleist wants me to, and that's why the rest of these numbers were unfortunately just not where they need to be. Given the case, you know, this kind of falls into those Bridgestone tour lines that I did. The ball ain't meant for me. It just obviously isn't. The other weird thing about this golf ball, we're getting into the durability test now, and I will say this is really weird. I actually had the chance to test this golf ball twice with 2 different AVXs, and both of them were beat to heck, which is really weird. Titleist is normally really good with it, but they were scraped really bad. Scuffs everywhere. I mean, honestly, it was really disappointed. Now, there isn't any abrasions, which is the good news, which means that you could still technically play with this ball through 18, but for a golf ball that cost almost $55, I would expect a little better than that. I mean, you can see from those pictures, it is scratched. I mean, it is really scratched. And again, I know I'm hitting into a net, but I hit into a net with all my golf balls, so I've seen a lot better than that, and I've seen a lot better than that from golf balls that cost half the price. Based on some other reviews I saw, you know, if you are looking for a golf ball with a little bit lower launch and a little bit lower spin, I think if you swing really fast, I think this ball does do that. But again, we're talking about a very limited market here. We're talking about, I'm not really sure Titleist needed this golf ball, to be honest with you, because you have the Titleist Pro V and the Pro V1, which is already used by pros all over. Did you really need another high, fast swinging tour ball? Did you really need 3 of them? I don't think so. I think that's a very limited market. I think really what they were trying to do was offer a different ball than the Pro V1 just to spice things up after 20 years and just kind of a marketing ploy. That's what it feels like. And that's to me how it performed like. But I know there's a lot of guys that like the AVX. And if you do, tell me why you do in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. But for the average swingers, you know, anything under 105, 110 to be safe, I wouldn't go with it. I just don't think it's going to help your game, and especially for almost $55 a dozen. That is a lot of money to spend. Guys, as always, keep watching and keep saving, keep learning. More ball reviews coming soon. Got some science experiments coming up that I'm very excited about, and then also some tech reviews too. They're all coming your way.